Okay, guys, I just got back from the range with the customer, and as always, grip and trigger squeeze are the main culprits to not being able to hit your target. So we're going to go through this video. There's little snippets of the video that I made at the range, and I'll explain to you a little bit more in detail on what the thought process was, so that you can improve your shot group at home wherever you are. So here we go. Okay, so before I do any kind of training with an individual that I've never trained with before, I do an evaluation, and that evaluation will be a shoot in. And this shoot in is it's an 8-inch circle and a 6-inch and a 4-inch, and then I think a 2.5-inch and then a 1-inch circle. Anyway, you can score 40 points. It's 10 rounds, and what you're trying to do is hit the very center, which is the inch circle, at 4 yards consistently, or at 7 or at 10 or whatever distance you want to shoot at. Now, for very beginner shooters, 4 yards is going to be plenty distance. For mediocre shooters, I wouldn't say mediocre, for the middle of the road shooters, we're looking at about 7 yards. You'll be able to get a good score. Obviously, if you're keyholing at 4 yards, you definitely want to move it back so you're not keyholing anymore and you can actually score the dang thing. And 10 yards and 15 yards will be your more advanced shooters. You're going to load 10 rounds, and I'm basically just going to watch you shoot. The idea here is to hit the black 1-inch circle.
Gotcha.
With as many rounds as you can out of 10. Basically, this is the line. This is the shooting line right here, okay? So from there, we're going to go ahead and load and make ready for me. So 17. Get 17 at 4 yards. So this customer in particular at 4 yards got a 17 score out of 40. And this was the shoot in. Now on his shootout, he actually got 32 out of 40 on his shootout at 4 yards. And then we pushed him back to 7 yards, and he got 30 out of 40. So he improved drastically at the end of this 2-hour session. Okay, so what I noticed automatically is that obviously you're left. Okay, that could be because your sight's not zeroed. It could also be because of whatever you're doing with your grip. Okay. The other thing I noticed is that your grip, you're not maximizing friction with your support hand. But what we need to do is we need to find the wall, or actually what I call the edge of the wall. So do you know what a sear is?
No.
The sear engages with that firing mechanism. In your case, like I said, it's the striker. Right. And then at a certain point, it disengages. So what I noticed on the evaluation is that his grip, he wasn't maximizing friction with his support hand. And in this case, he's a right-handed shooter, so his support hand would be left. He wasn't maximizing the grip with his support hand. So we did a little bit of extra training on that, and then also he wasn't finding the wall or the edge of the wall of the trigger. And so I explained what a sear is in this session, because it's important to understand what your firearm is doing on the inside when you're affecting the outside. So that's kind of what I did here. Okay, take this thumb and push it up out of the way, like you're hitchhiking. Yeah. Now you see this area right here?
Yeah.
So we need to fill this area in with that hand.
Okay.
So take your left hand and go like that. There you go, good. Now what you're going to do is, there you go, just like that. So the next segment of this session, we're talking about trigger press. And in this trigger press session, we're literally looking at our gun. We're empty. It's dry fire, okay? we're looking at our gun, the gun's pointed down range, and we're putting our finger on the trigger, however we would at the range, right? Whether it's the tip of your finger or whether it's the crease of your knuckle or whatever. I like to use the crease of my knuckle. And we're pulling until we feel resistance. Once we feel that resistance, we're going to start pulling really, really slow. And we're taking note of how much the trigger moves from the point of resistance to the point it actually breaks the shot. Okay, that could be substantially long. Let's say, for example, a Glock trigger, and in this case, his gun here, I can't remember what it was, or it could be very minimal. Let's say in a 1911, 2011, or single action firearm. Okay, whatever it is, you need to know exactly when it's going to break. That's when that sear is going to disengage from the firing mechanism, such as the hammer or the striker. And we're literally just going to point it down range, and we're going to put our finger in, okay? And then we're going to try to find that wall. That point where we feel resistance, right?
Okay.
From there, once I start feeling resistance, then I'm going to start pulling really slow, painfully slow, until it fires, right?
Okay.
Let's try with yours. Go ahead and draw, point down range, and just look at your trigger. I want you to look and I want you to pull, okay? Because you're getting a visual representation of where that is, so that when you're actually presenting, you kind of know where that is. You're getting that muscle memory, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Before we move your sights, I want to try another thing, because you're still moving, you're still pushing to the left.
To the left.
Okay, the next thing is that he was shooting consistently left. As a right-handed shooter, if you are using the tip of your finger, you have a tendency to push the gun left. You're not going to notice this while you're looking at your sights, but you are going to be pushing that gun left, most likely. And the opposite is true for a left-handed shooter, so we should pushing the gun right. In this case, he was pushing the gun extremely left, and so I have him put his trigger on the crease of his knuckle on the inside of his hand, of course, and then pull back. That enables a straight pull to the rear, not pushing left to right. You're just using the tip of your finger.
Yeah.
What I'm going to ask you to do is get your finger all the way in there.
Okay.
Okay. Military services, 20 years ago, they're like, just use the tip of your finger, right? What we do, we tend, as right-handed shooters, we tend to push that gun left, okay? And that's what's happening here. You're pushing that gun left. So on this one, we're going to do 10 more rounds. I want you to get your finger all the way in there to that crease.
Okay.
And let's see what happens from there.
Okay.
So 10 more rounds. Okay, that's a little bit of anticipation, right? So it could have been you. Now this particular customer, he still had problems with healing and with anticipation. We corrected the left and right with just moving where we're going to put the trigger on the finger, but the anticipation and the healing, we're still working on the up and down. At the end of the day, he improved drastically, even with the little bit of anticipation and the little bit of healing that he was doing. Could be some healing there, okay? Tell me when you're at the edge.
It should be there.
Okay. Pull really, really slow from there. So we corrected the left and right issue.
Yeah.
Now we have to correct the up and down issue, okay? Good, good. Way more better.
I can feel it though too.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so to wrap this up, your grip, you need to maximize friction with your support hand, and you need to find the edge of the wall of that trigger, okay? Those two things right there, if you can master those two things, you're going to be a better shooter than 90% of the people that you're going to encounter. We had some people shooting left and right of us, and they would bring an E-type silhouette, or basically a man-sized target, and they were shooting at 4 or 7 yards. That is not where you should be. You should be hitting an inch at 4 yards, and if you can hit an inch at 4 yards, push it back to 7 yards, and if you can do it at 7 yards, you push it back to to 10 yards. Okay. You want to try to be as precise as possible. If you're not doing that, you're doing yourself a disservice from not training correctly. Tack out.